The first level of learning about thought forms is when you learn about astral plane and the colorings associated with the astral plane. And what is normally seen as thought forms is the astral plane images that you will see in your meditation life. But when you become clairvoyant, you will see around people often the thoughts coming out of their minds. They can be quite well defined, or they can be vague or nebulous depending on the types of images or energy that's put into them. This is a book called Thought Forms by Bishop Leadbeater, and there's quite a few diagrams here, and this is one that's recommended for you to look at and to read if you wish. And on the level of building the images on the astral plane. Now, at the beginning of this book and the corresponding book, Man Visible and Invisible, there's a color chart which allows a clairvoyant to understand the qualities of the emotions that are built into those emotional thoughts. Karma manas is the term that we use for emotional thoughts. And there's quite a lot of color plates in here. And this one here, this picture here, shows anger. You can see the gray that it comes from and flashes of red lightning. And those that are angry will all project this type of energy at others. Some of you may have been into a room where there was an argument, quite a strong argument, and you'll be hit by this energy, by these flashes. You'll feel it. This is a brooding, sensual thought. Sexuality and red-pink color, and then the grayish of selfishness. So this type of sensual thought will just hover around the individual, or it'll be projected off, wafted off to the object of desire. Here's a picture of a blue cone with the reds and the greens and all of that with stars, and that's an aspirational thought. And then you get another grayish cloud of hooks that'll come from it, and that's a desire thought. And so the thoughts come out with the hooks to grab hold of things that you desire. It can be an alcoholic desiring, or somebody that desires cigarettes to smoke, or anything else. All those types of desires will come out of the person that is thinking selfishly or thinking of what they want. Here's a brooding thought over a cathedral, a church, and you can see probably choir music, and over it is quite a huge, expansive thought form is made from the aspiration of the people within it and probably the choir music. And so underneath there's a church. These are astral thought forms. If you're clairvoyant and you're mixed with people, then you'll see, as I said, you'll see these types of thought forms all the time if you wish to look at them. On the whole, you turn your visions off because you don't particularly want to be bombarded with people's desire forms or brooding selfish forms or sexuality projections and things like that. And you can read those thought forms quite easily once you understand the colorings. If they're projected with some force, they can be leave the body, the mental body, and then attack or latch on to, as I said, the object of desire. If they're just brooding thoughts, they just stay around the individual's thought structure. Those of you that are listening to me presently are dealing with these thought structures all the time. You are learning to cleanse them with light. You're learning to zap the dark energies with light. You're learning to cleanse out your own thought structures to become more and more luminous. Eventually, you're going to be building an aura like this, where there's no dark thought constructs, right? Everything from you is radiant, brilliant. That's what you be building. And this is, again, just another indication of the radiance of the thoughts that are around you. No darkness. Those of you that are dealing with the dark forces, that are the dark entities, the dark brotherhood that are sending to you, those are all thought forms on the whole that are being sent. And they can be, in the forms of flies or maggots or octopus or whatever, grey, blacks, browns, depending on the energy that's put into them and the force that they have. And on the inner realms, on the astral plane, thoughts are things. This is an esoteric statement. Thoughts are things is true in every level. And as I said, including your physical body. It's just a thing that's a thought construct of your souls that created that form, or a thought construct from the devas that composed it. As I said, my book has to be properly understand, that esoteric cosmology book, to properly understand the foundation of what's being said here. But thoughts are things. And these things on the astral plane are real, are entities. They're forceful. Just the same as on the physical plane, we have our physical bodies, and we can interrelate with our physical bodies, and we can see them, and we can touch them. But if you're on the astral body, then those thoughts that I just showed you, those images of thought forms, they're real entities. You can touch them within your astral form. They attack you. You feel the energies, the negativity of the energy, or the positivity of the energy, the vibrant energy of its bright light. And it can wallop you if you're dark in any way. It transforms you, and this is part of the symbolism associated with the war between the White and the Dark Brotherhood. One lot, the Dark Brotherhood, create these dark, evil, selfish, self-centered, manipulative thoughts, and the others are producing loving kindness and generosity and helpful thoughts, right? So there's a difference in the quality. One quality of the White Brotherhood are bright and light-filled, and the others are gloomy and dark, depressing. One harkens to the past, from where we've come from, or far into the far distant past, and one is part of the future, where we're going to. And that type of aura that I showed you of Guru Rinpoche's, and we can take any tanka with any of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas on it, it's all the same. That's the future for humanity. That's your future as well. That's what you're developing as you're meditating, as you're working upon yourself, the refinement of consciousness. But most people live in between. So they have these dull, greyish thoughts and energies, and they have places of bright illumination where they're thinking well. And it's swirling around their auras. It's interesting for all of you that, as I said, when you look into the mirror, you see a physical form. But if you had clairvoyance, that physical body would be much extended. When I was about 18, 19, I was quite clairvoyant then. I remember going out of the bathtub and then looking in the mirror and just seeing all the radiance and the energies all around me. So my form was extended some feet to what you would see me as. And likewise, if you saw me clairvoyantly, if I saw you, you would see that your skin is not the end of what you are. You have a radiance, an aura all around you. And as I said, that aura can be easily read. When I was showing you the pictures of thought forms on that particular book, we're looking at the astral plane colorings. In other words, the astral is watery, and we're looking at emotions, the emotional thoughts. And as I said, most people die. When they die, they go into this astral plane, and there exists humanity's heaven and hells. So there's everything from the murky hell states, the swamp-like conditions where those people have been selfish and sensual all their lives go to, and then there's the heavenly states that the loving types eventually end up into. And there are books on this subject. I've given some talks on the astral plane, so I won't go into that. But all of that is created by human minds or human desire minds. The astral plane itself is an illusion. It's an illusional field. It's also a temporary condition. Well, there's a humanity creating those conditionings on the astral plane with the desire minds. The heaven and hell states will exist. But eventually, there'll be no such thing. That whole astral conditioning will disappear, and all that'll be left is a body of energies. So as humanity evolves, they'll be cleansing out that astral murk, the heaven and hell states. They'll be dying to that because they're becoming meditators. Meditators are moving from the watery sphere to the domain of the mind per se. In the mind, the element of the mind is fire. And it's from there that all thoughts, all creation manifests. It's fire and the condensation of fire that constitute the laws of thought. Fire and sound. So once you get at this particular level, then we're talking about mantra. And I was giving to this group, explaining to them the 15 rules of white magic, which is really all got to do with the creation of thought forms from the mental plane down. And whether it is our physical, well, what we call the systemic mental plane, the mental plane of this earth, or a cosmic mental plane where logos is, it's all the same in terms of the projection of thought forms using sound, mantra. And the mantras are either consciously used, uttered, or some of you do it quite unconsciously with your desires and thought projections. It does not matter too much at this stage, and I don't want to go into this subject because of course it's quite highly esoteric and there's lots of dangers involved. But color and sound and color is what produces the universe, or that interrelationship. And then with that, you've got the concept of thought projection, using the will to direct, using the will to build, using the will to project, using the will to clothe that projected thought with astral plane substance, and then eventually to precipitate it onto the physical plane as a form. And that's the mode of activity of a magician or a logoic creator or of your soul itself. And this subject is, as I said, quite esoteric because then it concerns calling to the thought certain devas with certain colorings and qualities and the sounds that control them in order to build what it is that you wish to build. Any form of natural disaster, also the effect of thoughts, plagues of locusts, suddenly plagues of insects that you don't like, the bubonic plague, all of those is karma. Karma is just the reciprocal action of whatever thoughts or desire thoughts that you manifested. And if you look at the desire thoughts or the selfish manipulation of huge masses of people, so selfishness or hatred, spites, the fanaticism, for instance, of the Inquisition or of earlier periods of time, then those energies, those thought currents, those desire thought currents end up on the astral plane, and then they precipitate out in the form of the swarms of the locusts, or in terms of energies that affect the actual telluric currents of the earth. They can produce the earthquakes or whatever, because it's all just energy. Energy follows thought, or thought and energy are interrelated. E equals mc squared. Now that is the truth of the matter. Energy and matter intertwined. Whenever anyone creates a thought form or desire form, they're just manifesting and manipulating substance of energy, right? The energy produces a form. They produce matter of some sort. That matter is seen astrally or clairvoyantly in the terms of the thought forms that I showed you in that book. But those thought forms sometime will also precipitate into the physical plane. That energy field, those thoughts, are created by masses of people, huge waves of desire, of selfishness, for instance, or selfish manipulation, which is what you have now. That's just an energy field. And they produce waves of energies on the inner realms, on the astral plane. They produce the forms, and then the forms and descend back into the physical plane. In what way? In a reciprocal way. And they can vitalize, for instance, the Logos plague. That's what they incarnate into, or into diseases, disease-bearing vectors. Doesn't matter whatever science calls it. Whether it's in a flea and cause a bubonic plague, or in the form of colds and coughs and flus and all these other types of things that people are battling and trying to get healthy from, there's the precipitation of selfish thoughts or sensual thoughts or whatever it is on a mass scale that manifests on the physical plane eventually through the vector that is designed to carry it. This then comes into the concept of health and healing. But I just want to give you this type of idea as well. You have your own individual karma. And so your thoughts, your desires, those sensual thoughts with the hooks I showed you, they eventually rebound upon you. And those energies hit your psychic constitution, and the greys and the browns and all of that then find the vectors. The vectors are disease-bearing germs, and then that goes into the organ from which it was generated. It can be the heart area or the solar plexus, the spleen or whatever. And there you have the sickness, because the whole area there has been devitalized with those energies. Another way of looking at it, but sometimes, is that if people are always, say, emotional and are projecting this energy outwards all the time, projecting desire forms outwards, selfish forms outwards, then that substance, that astral substance and that area is being weakened. There's always an expulsion of substance. There's a hole there, like a devitalized area. There's no more defense against a mechanism or entities that come in. It works both ways. The weakening of that area plus the lack of defense plus the energies that finally find their way there or that have been created or generated that breed the entities associated with sickness, death, and disease. Well, sickness, disease, and death. We're talking about devitalization. Emotionality of all forms devitalizes. The whole subject of health and healing, and not just of a human unit, but on a planet-wide scale, is dependent on your understanding of the causes of these things, and these, again, thought forms. I've mentioned, of course, early on the Dark Brotherhood, and this is a talk that's a little bit intended for the general audience. So I didn't want to go too much into this. But those of you that are suffering psychic attack and those types of things and having to repel them and have seen all the visualizations of the types of entities associated. And you can see some of the grotesque forms that these entities have. And there you have the embodiment of the thought forms of the generators of that type of energy that you are trying to repel. And you use light to do so. And then these thought forms, as I said, they can be in the form of flies, even physical plane flies, all the way up to cosmic entities, vast in scope and very powerful. Again, what we're talking about is using your thought or your will and the energy you can generate to oppose or to counter or to transform, is what you're really doing, those dark shapes, those dark entities. So we're moving upwards from the astral plane to the mental, and I was talking about all thought constructs stem from the mental plane, and I didn't want to go too much into any of those laws or rules, but it's in my book. And the next step I want to go up to is to go to the world of hierarchy, of discipleship is where all of you are at. And you see this is the bodhisattva path, to never cease striving until all sentient beings have been released from suffering. Right? This is the path that you are on. And this is what you've vowed. And this is why you're listening to me. And there you see, within hierarchy, which is a sun of illumination, of light, a light body, all the thoughts are most luminous and bright. And that is what you, as disciples, as meditators, are endeavoring to live in. A sunlight environment. I don't know if I can explain it better than that. Generating a light field where everything about you is luminous. Everything about you is radiant. In the Buddhist philosophy, it's just simply called the natural state of mind, radiance. And radiance is defined as an enlightened mind. It's a radiant mind. It's autoluminous. It shines and dissipates darkness anywhere around it. So this luminous, radiant mind and radiant aura is the hierarchy of light and love. They are doing what? Their whole work, their entire modus operandi is to cleanse the darkness out of humanity, to cleanse out of humanity all of the forms of sicknesses. In other words, all of the negative thought forms, all of the greyish and the blackish and the brownish, the selfish ones, the self-centered, those that are manipulative, those that are of anger and hatred and spite, and to replace that with loving thoughts, with thoughts of light, aspiration, healing. The thoughts have healing on their wings. And so that type of radiance is what each of you are. And you're light bearers. And you bring into the world the light that you yourself have generated and which you carry with you from the higher sources, from the domains of hierarchy that are pouring into you as you have the capacity to direct it, to bear that type of energy. And as the light comes into you, so it throws out of you your toxins. And what are your toxins? These samskaras, and these tendencies towards darkness, to the dark thought forms, the selfish, separative, self-centered. All of those types of thought forms is what must be thrown out. When they're thrown out of you, they are the past, and they come out, therefore, through the organs that they were generated in. And normally it is sickness and disease, often in those areas. And the dark entities that once fed off those energies come to attack you. And then you have to cleanse those entities away from you so that you become more and more radiant, more a light bearer. And then when you're out into that world out there, what's around you? It's a miasma, it's a swamp of selfish and separate thoughts generated by humanity, and they attack you. They don't understand you. You're alien to them. You're an alien within that environment because you are a being of light and you're living in a swamp. And therefore, your mechanism then is to help to transform that swamp more into a light-bearing organism. And therefore, you educate them. Everything that comes out of your mouth is a two-edged sword. It's the sword of light, is to transform the mantras of those beings around you. What are the mantras? The mantras of selfishness, the mantras of separateness, the mantras of I, me, mine, the mantras of hatred, all of those dogmatic assertions, the mantras of ignorance, all the various forms of ignorance. Ignorance is darkness. You see that what you're dealing with, therefore, is cleansing the evil around you. But the evil is all engrossing. And you can end up like a Jesus on the cross, being martyred for one thing only, is to transform the sickness and the death and the disease of the dying ones all around you. And when we use the term dying ones, what that means esoterically are the people that are manifesting the qualities through their emotions or through their mental emotions that are predictive of sickness, death, disease. So it's not mineral plane drugs that are the healing agencies. They just prolong the sickness. They prolong the death process. It's the transformative agency of your light, of the mantras that come from your mouth to oppose and to overcome the mantras of darkness all around you. And that's that transformative aspect of those energies, those mantras, those thought forms that you are creating, and that will produce good health, not just in yourself, but in those around you and the planet as a whole. So all that are working to overcome the ignorance of the masses, simply that's what you are manifesting as a agent of overcoming the diseases and sicknesses of this planet. The other thing I'll just point out is that on the physical plane, people use their minds to create, to build. And what they don't realize is they're building with their hands. They make, manipulate, shape, paint pictures, do all the things, type on the computer with their hands. And the hands are the extension of your thoughts. But they either the chakras, it's chakras on the hands, and the fingers are the five nadis, the five pranas. The hands are the process of manipulation, but the extension of your mind. You grasp things and manipulate with your hands, either because your eye directs or it's your solar plexus, your desire that directs. So the way that your hands can manifest, and you can see what I'm doing, is just the way that you're thinking, the thoughts. The hands are very manipulable, adaptable. The thumb especially channels the pranas of the watery emotions. This concept of hands has its high application with the entire philosophy of thought forms if you understand the five pranas and then the transmutations into the five, the five instincts and the five sense consciousnesses, and then their transformation into the wisdoms of the five dhyani Buddhas, the five Buddhas of meditation. So for a logos, the hands in the right and left mode, Ida and Pingala, the demonstration of the powers of these five Buddhas of meditation. And my Buddhist books explain these Buddhas of meditation. They're really in many ways about them, because that's the mechanism of building all thought constructs in the universe. So this Yogacarya philosophy is the philosophy, and mind is all there is what governs the universe. That's the truism on every level, on every form of expression. Mind is all there is as long as there's manvantara. Then there's a place called Shunyata where there's no mind, but Shunyata is but the vehicle of Dharmakaya, which is cosmic mind. There's a point between, if you wish, empirical mind and cosmic mind, and that point of transition is Shunyata. I often regard Shunyata as an illusionary form too, that though for Buddhists it's the penultimate, but for an enlightened being, it's just a step in the way. It's the lowest level of cosmos, and cosmos is Dharmakaya. And it means deaf to empirical mind, yes. Thought constructs of the empirical mind no longer exist in Shunyata. It's all gone. It's empty. Right? All this stuff we were talking about, the astral plane and all the other images, no longer existing. Shunyata, emptiness, the void. But then we're in Shunyata, and this is the state of existence that Jesus experienced on the cross when he died, when he was crucified. And he said, Eli lama sabachthani, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? And the reason why he said that is because before that, he had the thought constructs of himself and this visible universe, and all of a sudden, he's in Shunyata. And up till then, also, he had the overshadowing presence of God, of the cosmic Christ. But when he took his fourth initiation on the cross, he died to all of that. And for one brief moment, he was in Shunyata, but he was in Shunyata at the very beginning of time. Everything is in darkness. Everything just dark, primordial time. And then from then onwards, the light started appearing, and you began to see in Dharmakaya. So this fourth initiation experience of the beginning of things is what he tried to explain when he uttered on the cross. And thought constructs are all illusional, transitory. And all magicians, they learn to build a thought construct, they project it to produce its purpose, then they have to withdraw it and back to its source. Every thought construct has its karma. It's a karmic construct. Wherever there is mind, there is karma, and the production of karma and the resolution of karma. All magicians have to cease the thought construct that they built at the beginning of time, if you wish. And so we have the cycles of manvantara, which is the appearance of things, and pralaya, the dissolution of things. And so manvantara, pralaya, and within manvantara, there are the cycles of expression, which are called in Hinduism the yugas, the Treta Yuga, the Satya Yuga, the Kali Yuga. These yugas manifest, and then the yugas have their durations of expression. So each of these are thought constructs with their appropriate durations of expression. It's likened also to the mechanism of a clock, which we've gone into a little bit when I was talking about Libra. That's again the machinery of time, or the machinery of expression of the cogs of the universe. So once you understand what I call the laws of mind, then you understand how the universe comes into being. All mysteries are solved. As far as mind goes, and I used the term before for logoic mind as mahat.